You have to believe me when I assure you that we never intended to unleash this pun upon the world, but sometimes things just don't make the cut. Maybe it's a game that you can't really recommend without so many caveats that it becomes a nightmare. Maybe it's a game that just isn't very good. Welcome to the first ever Nopener. So, Takenoko is a charming game about a panda who is a gift from the emperor to another dude. And the panda walks around the garden eating bamboo, but you can't have that because you're a bamboo gardener. But you're also a panda. You're all a panda. You're all the same panda. It's a very gentle game about gardening, effectively, which looks initially to be perfect for either children or maybe those who just like cute things. And let's be clear here, Takenoko is a frightfully charming game. The manual even starts off with a little comic book about the panda itself and how the panda got into the garden. It's lovely. You delve further into the box and you realise it's full of these fantastic wooden pieces. You get to actually physically stack up the bamboo as you grow it in your garden. You've got lovely little wooden tokens that help you remember how many turns you've had each turn, which are effectively pointless but very lovely. The 3 different colours of bamboo gardens you can build. Beautiful, as are the tiny sticks of blue wood that represent irrigation. Irrigation. Oh, just the word makes me excited. I don't know why. And then you've got the man himself, a grande pande, the panda. It's not his name, but that's what I'm calling him. He's adorable, really nice figurine, and even the farmer is a nice figurine. Even if it's rather amusing, but even if you do notice that the little slot that the farmer comes from does look a lot like something a bit rude. But that's not appropriate for children, so stop it.
Well, hang on, Paul, why don't you keep it?
So Takenoko is a very simple game and it's beautifully made. You just want to put all of the pieces in your mouth at once. So what's the problem? Well, unfortunately, fundamentally, it's just incredibly boring. And a lot of that does come down to these, the objective cards. You can have panda objective cards, which require you to fill up your panda belly with different colours of bamboo. Don't ask me why one panda has different bellies for every player. I'm not a biologist. You've also got the plot objectives, where you have to correctly position different colours of tiles and get them all irrigated in order to score the points. And finally, you've got the farmer card, which often requires very specific stuff, like 4 green bamboo shoots on a tile which specifically doesn't allow pandas on it. So every player has their own objective cards, and every player uses the same board, the same panda, the same farmer. So far, you've got the makings of a fun game. But the problem is, you keep your objectives hidden. Not knowing what other players are working towards means 2 things. It means, first of all, you can't ever stop somebody from doing something that they're trying to, because there are so many different objectives that it's impossible to really work out what they're aiming for. And the second problem is often you're actually helping people without realising that you are. Despite sharing the same board, you have no way of impacting the other players, and they have no way of impacting you outside of pure chance. And that makes for a game that is incredibly detached and horribly tedious. And the thing is, people are still going to do stuff which is going to mess you up, but they're going to do stuff that messes up your plans without knowing that they were doing it, which means you're still kind of annoyed that they've messed up your plan, and yet they haven't had to have any fun of messing you up in the process. Now, I know what you're thinking here. Maybe you're thinking, Matt, don't be harsh. This is clearly a game aimed at children. And you know what? You might have a point. But it's difficult to recommend this game without a severely long list of caveats. Perhaps if you want a game that you can play with people who are very fond of twee, cute characters and very nice tactile bits of wood, and you're playing with people who really, really don't like any form of conflict or any form of perceived conflict whilst playing a game, then you might have fun with this. But personally, I've tried it in a variety of scenarios and it's been boring every time. And it's a shame because Takenoko is a fantastic representation of what board games can be. But this just isn't it. I mean, you can use this game to showcase to people that board games aren't all the same. They're not just a wooden dice and a metal dog and that you put in a hat if you're feeling fruity. They can be different. They can be interesting. And the way that the mechanics work, it's elegantly designed in as far that it introduces lots of ideas and mechanics that lots of modern board games use, and it introduces them in a way which is easy to understand and easy to follow. It's not a bad game for teaching people how to play games. But when you get to the end of playing a game of this, you might not convince them to play anymore. So yes, Takenoko is a poison chalice, unfortunately. It's the sort of game that people are going to see and they're going to want to play and they're going to think is a cool game. But it's not. It's not a cool game and it's not a fun game. And if you're not careful, if people really want to play this sort of game, then you can play it with them, but then afterwards they might think that this is what board games are, this is all board games can be. And when you contrast that to a game which I believe is almost the backbone for everything that represents what I love about board games and how I got into them myself, when you look at Cosmic Encounter, that's a game in which you finish a game in about the same length of time, half an hour, 40 minutes, but when you get to the end of that game, you've only just started understanding how the game works, but my God, you want to play another game. Takenoko doesn't merit a second game, really, let alone expanding someone's interest in the hobby. So, apologies if that seemed brutal, but you know what? Not all games can be good games for introducing games to people for games. We're not going to get extravagant though, are we? Because you're not going to have loads of people around to play this. You're not. Promise me you're not, because there are better games. So instead, let's get self-indulgent, because I've got a cold and I want to fix that cold with a traditional Japanese drink called a hot toddy.
To make yourself a hot toddy, you're going to need a mug. I'm using this novelty mug. Honey, lemon, whiskey. All of the whiskey. And finally, hot water. And that's it. I'm going back to bed.
And that's it for the very first opener. Hopefully a format that we won't have to use too many times in the future. But yeah, thank you very much. And I do hope you enjoy your traditional Japanese drink.